Frank McCourt, entrepreneur, former owner of the LA Dodgers, and of course, founder of Project Liberty. It's great to meet you.
Yeah, nice to be with you as well.
Thanks for doing this. So first, tell us a little bit about Project Liberty. Just give us in simple terms what your mission is.
Yeah, at a very high level, it's a project that is focused on reimagining and redesigning and rebuilding internet technology and AI that puts human beings at the center, as opposed to the platforms themselves being at the center and we on the outside looking in. It also has a policy track that goes hand in glove with the tech track, and then a movement track, which is a way to actually socialize the issues, educate people, and bring people along so that we can imagine and build the world that we want, not be dragged into a future that perhaps big tech would like to take us.
Get specific so we can all visualize. What would that world look like? So if I open my phone, what's different about how I interact with technology in your vision?
Yeah, well, I think that at first we need to think about how the technology is evolving and changing. And I think 5 years from now, we won't be using apps in the same way that we've been using them. They'll diminish in importance, and agents will increase in importance. So we'll have a technology that will be driven by agents interacting with agents. And I think what we need is really a sovereign agent that works for each of us and is our fiduciary, and where we are able to kind of reclaim our personhood in this digital age, our ownership and control of our personal data, permission its use. So how one uses the technology will evolve in a very easy, smooth, polished way. So it's not like going to be radically different. We'll still be using our smart devices and so forth. But who will be in charge will be fundamentally different. And that's what we're strenuously arguing for.
So you've just given me so much to unpack there, and I wanted to take a step back, right? Because when you started this, what did you see in the world, even personally, that made you say the internet as it exists right now, and this is before we were talking about agentic AI, is broken?
Well, I have the benefit and privilege of being part of a family that's been building infrastructure for 135 years, including internet systems. So I'm massively pro-technology. However, with the wrong incentives, something quite good can go off the rails. And my first kind of warning sign, let's call it, was, you mentioned I used to own the Dodgers, and sadly I got divorced in 2009, 10, 11, and that was just at the moment that Facebook introduced the like button, Twitter, the retweet option, and then Instagram came out with the like button baked in. And what happened is the internet became very, very performance-based. It was no longer just a nice way for us to connect with people or old high school friends or share pictures of our family and kids, with others and all that. It became very, very performance-based. And the more extreme the performance, the more likes or followers. And so the algorithm started to take hold. And I noticed this because I was on the receiving end of this during that, time in my life where I was going through a difficult
really
phase.
High-profile moment.
Yeah. And so a target.
Right.
And so, the metaphor I use, I felt like I was watching my house burn down.
Right.
And I had a garden hose with low water pressure to put out the fire while there were 1,000 people pouring gasoline on the fire.
Frank, so what I find so interesting about that is, obviously you're a person with agency, with power, with money, right? Did it teach you something about how all the rest of us are also encountering? What motivated you to do something about it?
Well, yeah, I got through that phase, and as difficult as it was, I got through it fine, and life went on because, like you say, I had resources, I had, I have a great family, I have friends, a network, and so forth. So I had the support I needed. But I said, oh my gosh, what is this going to mean for a 14-year-old girl? Or a 13-year-old, or 15-year-old boy. This is who doesn't, not only not having the resources, but not the maturity to realize that that life is a process. You make mistakes, you pick up and dust yourself off, and you go on, and so on and so forth. Young people, they make a mistake and they think it's the end of the world. And this technology was capitalizing on people's mistakes and their vulnerabilities. And so I really felt this is a dangerous direction we're headed in. So my first instinct was to focus on policy, actually. And we helped start a public policy school in Washington, D.C. with Georgetown University right on Capitol Hill, a great school. But I realized a few years after that the policymaking apparatus in the United States was no match for the speed, the power, and the resources of big tech.
Right.
And so we had to actually address the technology itself and re-architect it, because the tech is, as I said earlier, it's just a tool. Mm-hmm. It's just a tool, and we can, like a hammer. A hammer is a tool. You can use a hammer to build a home or to kill someone, right? Right. It's how you use the tool, how you design it, and the incentives that are really, really important. And this beautiful technology, I think, has been, a decentralized technology has become very centralized. There's a concentration of power, and really it's all built off of what? Our data, to a large extent, personal data.
What does data ownership mean in your mind, and what is the sort of right way for companies to still be able to make money, right, and consumers to have more control over their personal information?
Well, 5 years ago, you'd hear big tech's argument, which was, that your data is not worth that much, and I think we can dispose of that argument. We see now 7 companies worth $25 trillion and so forth. Turns out our data is highly valuable, and particularly when it's aggregated. And so the question is, who owns it? Where is it stored? Who gets to use it for what purpose? And who benefits from it? It's not that the data isn't vitally important. It's answering those 4 questions that's important. And I believe strongly that our data is our personhood in this day and age. Our digital DNA, it's everything about us. So to separate ourselves, our biological being, from our digital being, our virtual self, it's just it's a wrong way to think about it. Our digital footprint is part of who we are. It's our personhood. We should own ourselves, and so the idea of returning to people what's theirs, giving them agency, allowing them to permission the use of the data in ways that they're comfortable, will still have a very powerful operating system. Lots of money and value will be created. Some of that will be shared with the people generating the value, though. So I think that's a really important component. But what's most important to me is the idea of agency. So is individuals reclaiming what's theirs and being able to permission its use, or, by the way, rescind permission if the data is not being used correctly.
Right. I mean, there's so much, of course, there, but I get you're sounding very European, first of all. Okay, so what do you think if a tech company were to listen to you and say, well, how would you balance regulation and innovation? Where's the guardrail there in terms of what control a tech company should have versus the consumer? Well,
I think I hope I'm sounding very pro-democracy. This is a bit of the conundrum. We have the U.S. and Europe theoretically share an ideology. We're both nations that believe strongly in freedom and liberty and the worth and dignity and of every human being, and of course the social contract. We rely on our nations to protect us, and so on and so forth. The technology that is evolved, mostly out of America, otherwise it's China, and that's another issue, is technology that's not built with democratic values and principles embedded. So it's surveillance-based, it's autocratic, highly centralized, it's extractive, and it's exploitive. Those are not words that would leap to mind if I asked you to describe democracy.
Right.
So we have these two operating systems side by side. One is a political ideology, the other is this technology that has now become very, very ubiquitous, right? We're highly dependent on it. It's not a nice to have, it's a must have. Right. Turns out it's more resilient than our democracy. It's very powerful. So we need to decide, are we going to just let our ideology bend to this autocratic, centralized technology? Or are we going to re-engineer the technology to be harmonious with our democratic values and principles? And that's really at the heart of Project Liberty. We think we need to harmonize the two. And then we can strengthen democracies, right? And then we can have integrity in with our technology, start believing again in one another, restoring trust, really being able to separate fact from fiction, and then of course, protect everyone, but particularly children. So this idea of really harmonizing the design of the technology with the fundamental principles and values and ideals of democracy, I think is important. And we have a clash right now in the U.S. Now in Europe, they're very focused on the policy objectives, but don't yet have the tech to implement them. But I think what Europe is finding is if you don't have the technology that is in harmony with your policy objectives, it's very difficult to actually have those policies.
Which is why the sovereignty debate is so challenging, right? Because it's divorcing yourself from the already established and proven technology is hard to do, right?
Well, yeah, you have 30 years of entrenched technology. It's hard to change.
Right.
But, and this is, I think, the moment of great promise, the technology is shifting now. We're moving from an app-centric web to an agentic web, one that will be dominated by agents, AI agents. And when technology is entrenched, it's hard to change. When technology is shifting, when it's fluid, that's the moment where it's white space, and you can re-engineer or redesign or rethink the technology and mitigate the harms. And that's what we should be doing right now, in my opinion, is we should be looking at the technology, what works well and what is not working well, and rather just racing into the future, hoping for the best, we should actually solve for the problems. Fix the problems and then evolve, and then build more powerful technology that puts human beings at the center. And this is all very doable if we want to do it. So this is an incredible moment here in Munich, because I think Europe is realizing that they need technology that is in concert with their policy objectives. And now in the US, we need to have the conversation as well. Don't we need the same? So when you say I sound European, I hope...
I don't mean that as a diss, by the way.
I hope I'm sounding very American, because I am and proud of it. But I do believe strongly in democratic values and principles.
And we didn't even talk about baseball. Frank McCourt, thank you so much. This was really fascinating.
Yeah, thanks for having me.